Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to this community showdown. It's going to be the Wood Elves led by Solo Spaghetto facing off against the forces of Slaanesh, who shall be helmed by the Hitman Hippo. Here we are at the Rift at the World's Edge, and for the Slaanesh build, it is going to be a big old front line of shielded Hellscourge warriors, which makes sense. They have shields, so they can take a little bit of a beating from archers, not much. They're still only bronze shields with 15 armor, but it's something. And on top of that, they do trade pretty well into the baseline infantry, like the Eternal Guard, with their own stat line being very respectable, 30, 38, and 30. Aside from that, in the secondary, we do have the heavy hitters. It is going to be the Chaos Warriors with the Hellscourges, recently coming off a cost increase, but still incredibly good. And it is going to be double Melkoth's Caster. So Melkoth's is an incredibly incredibly good spell. It does a lot of damage for its cost, and it also has a slow attached to it. So against a fast faction like Wood Elves, who might be pressing in at like a flank or something, or let's say you're trying to catch something, incredibly good. So it is going to be double Melkoth's Caster. With Prince Sigvald, so hot right now here in the front line, very good against Wood Elves, incredibly tough to kill, sits on that objective and just grinds it on out. Now, looking at the forces of Solo Spaghetto here, it is going to be a Glade Lord on a Stag, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's going to be a Stag. Old school Wood Elf style of play, using the Prey of Anathema to lock something down. We do have his own Melkoth's Caster. Granted, this Branch Wraith does also have an Earthblood with some Dryads in the Vanguard. Going to be stealing the point right away. Always a good idea. And in the deep lines here, we do have the Eternal Guard with shields, with some Glade Guard Starfire shafts, and some spears in the back, and a Vanguard of the new and massively improved Deepwood Scouts, which are just an insanely good unit. So while the players get in position, we will get straight to the action here. Deepwood Scout's going to be opening up and immediately getting some casualties against the Devoted Marauders. And Hitman Hippo, I think, is going to pull back and kind of scheme it out a little bit. We do see the Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows here being sniped by the Glade Lord. Does eat an arrow to the face, and it's pretty fun in tabletop. Wood Elves have a rule, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but before the game starts, the Glade Lord, or your Lord of your army, can choose to like shoot an arrow at the enemy Lord. It's like to intimidate them, and you could potentially like cheese a wound off them in the beginning, which is, it's a really kind of thematic rule just to show how like superior they are at archery and whatnot. But Swift Shiver Shard shooting at the Chaos Sorcerer, but with proper juking and the fact that it's a foot character with high armor, the Swift Shiver Shard shouldn't be too devastating against that Chaos Lord. Definitely just want to shoot against the, the other pieces here that are lightly armored. But yeah, not even too bad. These Devoted Marauders are taking it like champs, but the Wood Elf firepower is now coming in here. We do see the Glade Guard Starfire shafts. Most likely going to be focusing down the Chaos Sorcerer and or the Hellscourges here. We'll have to see. But yeah, the Wood Elf army does have a lot of shields to get through. It's not going to be an easy time, that's for sure. Dryads on the side, going to be engaging against Devoted Marauders. We do see a Melkoth going down on Marauders instead of Chaos Warriors, so perhaps getting a little bit excited there. And the Stag character, people often forget these great Stag mounts are actually really good combat characters. 65, 60, 380 is a pretty respectable stat line, and it should be able to honestly dominate this Chaos Sorcerer. And getting one of those Melkoth's casters off the battlefield, and on top of that, just getting rid of a good combat character is not going to be bad at all. But Sigvald has gone balls deep into the secondary line, so we see him so hot right now. Shield bashing these Elven archers, so those Glade Guard Starfire shafts going to start taking some casualties. Meanwhile, Slaanesh is turning up the tempo. Here we do see the call into the Wild Hunters of Khurnis, but they were outmaneuvered by Slaanesh a little bit. The Hellstriders were able to dive through, get on top of the Deepwood Scouts, but there is going to be a reckoning as the Wild Hunters, recently coming off a massive armor-piercing buff, are going to get in and just shred those guys. So yeah, you can see big casualties on the Hellscourges, and the Deepwood Scouts were able to provide supporting fire to one another, and overall they should be able to peel off these Slaaneshi warriors. Wood Elves pulling a bit of a value lead here, but the objective's currently owned still by Wood Elves. They're actually anchoring it pretty well with their Eternal Guard. Here on the backside, the Glade Guard Starfire shafts getting hit by Melkoths, but it's honestly not even that much damage. I guess it does a little bit against these guys, but probably not worth it. More than you'd want to spend it on the Wild Hunters or maybe some of the other infantry units that come out. And there's the Melkoths there. Okay, so there was two casters, so that's why we saw it on the other unit. But yeah, even still, the Wild Hunters of Khurnis doing magic damage is pretty sweet. It gets past the physical resist that Slaanesh does love to enjoy. And they are able to tear apart the Seekers of Slaanesh for probably good value on them, honestly. Those are the Swift Shiver Shards. Let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at the value of the Wild Hunters here. Only about 700, but they got those Seekers to crumble, which is pretty massive. And the Swift Shiver Shards proving to be incredibly devastating against demon factions. Their magic damage, 180 range, an insane amount of DPS is pretty disgusting. But Wood Elves, hey, I wonder what the best approach to that is, the Deepwood Scouts. We'll have to see. Currently, Wood Elves are the #1 faction as it pertains to win rates on Total Tavern, but, after a couple months, or, a couple weeks at least, of the new season, we'll get a really accurate metric of things. All right, so right here, we do see the Wild Hunters advancing up, and some Wild Riders coming off a speed buff as well, so they're now very, very quick. They were able to steamroll Objective 3, and we do see the Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh in a little bit of danger here. Could get hunted by those Wild Riders. And the flank here, potentially, Colin of Marauder Horsemen. Looks like they wanted to fight the Wild Riders, but we do see Solo Spaghetti get a pretty good reaction there. And he is able to pick off a couple of his models. 95 speed on those Slaanesh Cav and 90 on Wild Riders. So Wild Riders very, very quick now. It's a shot Cav unit, one of the fastest in the game. Even the Bretonnian shot Cav have 84 movement speed, so at least the Wood Elves can outmaneuver them a little bit with Wild Riders now. It's cool to see them. Wild Riders are just one of the most rad units for sure. So Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh surging into the secondary, being shot down the pipe here by the Deepwood Scouts with these Swift Shiver Shards. And they're sure shivering, but now the Warriors of Chaos starting to outmuscle on the front line. It makes sense. Wood Elves typically aren't going to be defeating Warriors of Chaos in a frontline sense. I mean, they can with Blade Singers for sure, but Blade Singers are, you know, relatively vulnerable against Melkoths as well as heavy cavalry. Like Chaos Knights, so there's a lot of things that, you know, Slaanesh can do here. But Hitman Hippo seems to be very aware of the meta, not bringing a lot of good Melkoth targets. Therefore, the magic of the Wood Elves hasn't been terribly devastating so far. But yeah, kind of cool that they both know their business. That's for sure. In the backfield, the last of the Chaos Warriors is going to be picked off, but not before it really stuffs back the Wood Elves quite a bit. We do see Slaanesh owning Objective 2 now. Objective 3 is still owned by the Wood Elves, and Objective 1 is in flux here. Wild Rider's going to be chasing these guys down, though, and a couple Dryads. When the trees start speaking Dryad, you know you're in trouble. And they will bash these Marauders for sure. They're fighting in their natural habitat. Marauders are massively outmuscled, and that is going to be a dodgy one. So looking at the value so far, 5.2 against 3.6. Pretty close game. Could certainly go either way. There's a little bit of healing on Slaanesh via Sigvald, but this great Stagcaster has been a menace this game. It's just been riding around. I love the dual purpose of it, the duality, right? Its sniping ability with its bow. It has a snare. It's also a good enough fighter to go after like weaker targets like these casters and hunt them down. And yeah, the Great Stag might actually get a kill here. 72. Oh, we have to see the stag kill. Okay, it's going to turn around. Is it going to get it? It's trying its best. There it goes. Here comes the Great Stag. Let's go. It's trotting triumphantly. Maybe, I think he might have given it an attack order to go somewhere else. Oh, I think that's what he did. He's like giving it an aim order over there instead of just killing this guy. That's pretty funny. But blue balls, it is what it is. Middle objective owned by Slaanesh. Objective 1 here is going to be owned by the Wood Elf still. And now the Wood Elf Archer line is going to be saturating up. Granted, their ammunition is very sparse. We see the Swift Shiver Shards. Have they paid for themselves? 1,000 value on this one. This one's going to be rocking 750, so not quite, I don't think. Yeah, most of them have basically just about paid for themselves here. And the Great Stag character, oh, there he goes. All right, so he gets the MLG snipe on that Sorcerer. So that Wizard is gone. And do they still have access to a caster somewhere? I'm not sure. There might be another Slaanesh caster somewhere. But on the side, we see the Fiends called in. Very cool. They recently got buffed as well, magic damage, and they just generally hit hard and have a nice little debuff. But they are being hunted by the Wild Riders, and their 30 armor is not going to hold up super well to shock charges, but in sustained combat, with the support they do have here from the Chaos Warrior Hellscourges, they probably do win this fight. Hellscourge Warriors are going to be applying poison, and the Fiends themselves also, I believe, do poison, but you get the Soporific Musk, which is going to be debuffing the stat line of these Wild Riders considerably. So they're probably going to lose this fight. Slaanesh might have an opportunity to start getting back in this game. When the Wood Elf Archers start to run out of ammunition and they're forced to, unsummon them, call in fresh archers, they're not going to have that same Alpha Strike potential, and that does give Slaanesh a much-needed opportunity to play to their strengths, which is going to be that grind, right? Slaanesh is all about that sweet bump and grind. Very cool to see Fiends in action, though. Up to about 500 value being shot by some archers. A fairly healthy unit of Starfire Shafts. Here we see a Brave and Othrama going down to the Mirror Guard, which we're going to be trying to surge through. So obviously wanted to keep these archers online, knowing how important they are to take down the Fiends. And Wild Riders. Man, a lot of Wild Riders. Cool to see them, man. So they're here with their 90 movement speed, going to be plowing into some of these very light Slaanesh infantry. And even though they have spears for arms, they are not spear units, they are swordsmen. And will take a beating from the Wild Riders. But once again, the Fiends coming back and going to be debuffing them. You can see their stat line immediately gets tagged, -5 and -5 in tandem with poison. Another 15% mitigation of their damage, that is a lot. And the Hellscourges are coming. So these are the Whip Warriors. The anti-large variant might arguably be better against Cavalry now that it got a bonus for its large increase, but these ones are still good against light Cavalry, while also being more of a generalist. So, might be the safer choice. But the Wild Riders do get absolutely swamped. There's just too many units here. You have the Fiends, you have the Hellscourges, you have Devoted Marauders. It was just too much to handle. So Objective 1 is going to be flipped back to the Wood Elves most likely. Sigvald is in the secondary line, causing a little bit of havoc as the Wild Hunters of Kurnus. The heavy hitters have now been called in. So Wild Hunters of Kurnus, of course, amazing unit. Now that they have armor piercing, you can see they just plow through this business and they get right into the Fiends of Slaanesh. But they're going to be caught in a bit of a trap. Solo has been running into a lot of tough engagements, and this is Hitman Hippo starting to farm some value back. These expensive units being thrown into Fiends, Hellscourges, and infantry. It's a tough one. Might actually give Slaanesh a way back into this game. A couple Wild Riders are going to be rallied back in here. We do see the Fiends starting to finally melt. The Wild Hunters of Kurnus, even with their stats debuffed, are still pretty respectable fighters here, and they are grinding them down. About 1,300 value here, but they did fight before, so they haven't gotten too much. Here on the side, we do see the Glade Lord and the Branch Wraith duking it out with some Chaos Warriors. Not a single Chaos Knight in sight, by the way, from Slaanesh here, and that was very much the meta against Wood Elves for the longest time, but due to the prevalence of Melkoths just alone, that did really change the dynamic of Chaos Knights seeing play in this particular matchup. So Dryads and Wild Hunters of Karnus able to do it. Looks like Slaanesh does get some reinforcements in, but it's going to be too little too late, probably. I think the Dryads and the remnants of the Wild Hunters should be able to win that one. We'll have to kind of keep tabs on things, but taking a big macro look at the battlefield, we do see Hitman Hippo 700 resources in the bank and Solo Spaghetti spending them as they come. Objective number 1 is going to be owned by Slaanesh, but we'll see for how much longer. Objective 2 is owned by the Wood Elves, and they are going to get some Spheres and a Branch Wraith up there as well. But Sigvald is doing it, and this game is pretty close on value. About 1,000 healing on the Slaanesh side via Sigvald, but aside from that, no healing. So the metrics are probably pretty close. Not going to be encapsulating things that are routed off the battlefield and whatnot, but it is what it is. So here we have the Hellstriders moving in, and these are the Whip variant, going to be very good against the Dryad units with a little bit of infantry support from the Devoted Marauders. Is Slaanesh going to be able to get back in this? This is currently, from the looks of things, yeah, it's just about a triple cap situation. It will be by the time anything changes. Here we see Dryads coming out of Vanguard doing the work, and also, what is this? This is a unit of Hellstriders. Yeah, Slaanesh might be able to hold on to this one. They're very fast. They got a lot of reinforcements here. The Fiends are still fighting, which is pretty nuts. Fiends at 2,000 value on the Fiends of Slaanesh. You love to see it. They're a unit that needed buffs for a long time, and they've just been doing what they're supposed to do, which is being like a support monsters infantry with that debuff and big blob fights. It's a very, very good piece, and they're super fast, super furious. And a couple of those Fiends are going to be heading over, knowing that this objective might be safe now, although I don't know, those Dryads might eventually win that fight. So here on Objective 2, Sigvald is on his way back over. Here we see some Hellscourge Warriors charging into the Deepwood Scouts with the Swift Shiver Shards. They did rip a volley on the way in and almost melt these guys in 1 or 2 shots, I would imagine. But here the Deepwood Scouts probably going to pay the troll toll, depending on the circumstances. And Slaanesh might actually have an opportunity to get back in this game. It's looking really, really close. It is triple cap situation at this point. So the Wood Elves could just Helm's Deep if they so choose. But it would be a very tight game, and it would take a long time. So Slaanesh would have its opportunity to get back. 9.6 for solo, 9.2 against Hitman Hippo here, or for Hitman Hippo. Side objective is owned by Slaanesh. We have the Hellscourge Warriors fighting the Dryads. 88 Dryad models in sustained combat might actually win that. So there is going to be a second Dryad coming in. Slaanesh is going to need some reinforcements. Some Seekers would actually maybe be decent. Although maybe just the Hellscourge Warriors are more cost effective. We'll have to keep tabs on that. In the middle, Prince Sigvald, he's getting it. Him and his Devoted Marauders are going to be shield bashing their way through this objective with their pointy spear arms, and looks like they will for sure get this one, as the Eternal Guard are going to be breaking. And up on the high ground, we got Devoted Marauders swarming in, Marauder Horsemen on top of Deepwood Scouts, and more shielded warriors with this sweet Sorrow active. All right, so that's going to be giving them a speed buff. That was kind of cool to get them to the battle a little bit quicker. And yeah, man, tight game here. This could go any way. And look at this, Slaanesh has actually pulled ahead on the value lead here. And Hitman Hippo is potentially in a situation to get this one back, but the Wood Elf Helm's Deep is still very much on the table, as they are going to be reclaiming Objective 1 in time here. Fair amount of archers coming back in, a lot of tattered units for both players. Nobody really has a healthy core of units. The Deepwood Scouts getting karate chopped here on this side, pretty unfortunate for the Wood Elves, so that is definitely a really, really nice pick here for Slaanesh. And Prince Sigvald is heading over towards objective number uno with the remnants of his Devoted Marauders, and he's not going to get this one back quickly. Those Dryads going to hang on to it, and he does rotate his units that he had over towards objective 3, towards objective 2. He has a bit of time though, but I mean, it's going to be, yeah, about 150 seconds from this point, so just over 2 minutes here to get it back. Some Marauder Horsemen on the way in. We do see the Glade Captain rear charging into these Marauders with the Dryad support, and Solo Spaghetto, I think, where the momentum may have shifted enough to get Slaanesh back in the game was on the side objective. We saw like two Wild Rider units and the ROR move in to a really bad fight, into a saturated infantry point that had Fiends as well as Hellscourges. They were just outmatched every time, being sent in like 3v1. I think that's what allowed Slaanesh to grind their way back into the game. But is Slaanesh going to be able to get this point quick enough, guys? Ooh, man, it's getting real tight. About 100 seconds left here. I don't see this point flipping. Hellscourges are sitting on that one, and here we do see this one being held by Slaanesh pretty firmly. In the backfield, Slaanesh mobility is picking off the archers, and Wood Elves are going to have to just spam Vanguard units. That's really all they're going to be able to do. Wild Riders trying to chase down these units, maybe going to be running interference, but they're going to have to pull back here. And Sigvald also, he is a grindy boy. He is going to be able to wear down these Dryads to the point where they're maybe close to breaking. They do have the Lord nearby, which is going to be giving a bit of an encourage. And Marauder Horsemen also do provide 4 capture weight, but the Wild Riders have arrived back on the point. It is starting to flip a little bit. That's a little bit scary. It could be going to the forces of Slaanesh. I mean, it is Yeah, it's only 70 seconds, a minute and 10 seconds left here. That needs to be held here by the Wood Elves. And it looks like Slaanesh might be able to get it. We don't see any trick plays coming in from Solo. He does have his Wild Riders coming in, but there's not going to be any fancy plays where he tries to like Alpha Strike Objective 3 and get that one back. Wild Riders will arrive, and they're going to be trading pretty well. There is a chance the Wild Riders might be able to bunker bust off some of these units. That is a 4 additional capture weight arriving. Wild Riders are going to be crushing into these Marauder Horsemen. That's going to be brutal damage. You start to see them die in droves. But now we have Hell Scourges, Devoted Marauders here. Sigvald is also a big problem. He is such a sustainable fighter that's going to be able to pick down these Wild Rider units where the rest of the Slaanesh army might falter. And man, what a close one. 1470 here, but it looks like the Prince of Darkness has pulled it back, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't see any way the Wood Elves are going to be able to do it. They're fighting from behind now. It's just pure desperation. I think that's going to be a tap out at this point. What a great game. Very back and forth. I do think that was a game that Solo had the advantage. He played extremely well in the early and mid game, but just that one kind of issue on the side point where he threw a lot of value into the old Slaanesh meat grinder, I think cost him the game. And Hitman Hippo is our recent champion for the Total Tavern finals. He won last season. Just the culmination of the entire season, the competitive league, he won it. So that's an opponent you can't make mistakes against. But the fact that Solo was able to compete in that way, very, very impressive. He played extremely well. That was a great game. Solo's also killing it this season too. On the newest season, season 7, I'm pretty sure he's got like an 80 or 90% win rate or something. He's been doing very, very well. But that's going to be it. GG, well played. These two mighty champions. Slaanesh is going to be holding on against the hardwood, and they were seduced by Slaanesh here today. Yes, yes. All right, so really cool to see Wild Riders doing well. The Glade Lord was awesome. Probably got good value. Prey of Anathramus, I'm sure it came in clutch. Yeah, 2,000 value there. Branch rates did fine. I'm curious about the Melkot's casters. Yeah, not really that great, honestly. But that's because the Wood Elves didn't really, I guess they just got killed. Yeah, they just got taken out by that character. Swift Shiver Shard's pretty insane, considering there's no good targets for them, really. Wild Riders, 1,400, 1,400, and 1,700. They got summoned twice, I think, so not bad considering they were in losing circumstances. And dude, the Fiends, oh yeah, sign me up for that. 2,100 value on them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Well played, these mighty champions. And special shout out to Solo for sending in a loss. Not a lot of people do that, so big props to you, man. It takes some. All right, see you guys around. Take care.